You're listening to the Fantasy Wildcard Podcast.
Yes, hello everybody and welcome back again to the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show. I'm your host today. It's me, Mags. You can follow me over on X at Hot Seat Mags. I'm joined today, back by popular demand. It's the undisputed best two of the Fantasy Wildcard team. I'm joined once again by the Dynasty Grill himself. It's Ali. Ali, good to see you, mate. How are you?
Yeah, really good. Thank you, Mags. Good to see yourself. We had lots of people asking. We're not quite ready to have Kev back on the podcast. We want these two mock drafting once again, the best two. So here we are. We know it's quite an exciting time. There's not much going on, but OTAs have started for a few teams this week. So we're getting some hype videos, which are always funny, circulating on X, on Twitter. It's exciting times. I've got a bit of an alcoholic drink, so who knows how this show is going to go tonight. Mags, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, mate, doing really well. Thank you very much. You're right. It's a bit slow, but I like this is like people running in slow motion season, right? This is like you get the slow-mo runs around the cones and like you get to see all that. It's like people blow up over it. Yeah, it's always really good fun. But yeah, man, I'm getting close to the end of the term in my day job, so I'm sort of gearing up for summer a little bit now, Ollie. And with summer brings, of course, draft after draft after draft, as we all promised we wouldn't sign up for more leagues, and here we are doing another startup draft. So don't worry, we've got you covered today at the Fantasy Wildcard Dynasty Show, because today, me and Ali, we're mock drafting. And if you can see on the screen, if you're watching this on X or on YouTube, you can see the visuals. We've really spread out, Ali, right? You've got the pick number 1. I've gone for pick number 12. This should be really interesting, right?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking more about sort of the theory behind the picks, the sort of strategy that we're going for. It couldn't be much different. You know, if you've got the first pick, if you've got the last pick, there's two contrasting strategies that, you know, can benefit you and help you win. So hopefully we'll get there and we'll draft some fairly decent looking teams. Obviously we will. And yeah, can't wait to kick it off and see who we end up with.
I've got an interesting strategy in mind, because as you can see, we are running here. It is a super flex. It is tight ends normal as well. So we've got no premium on the tight ends here. You can see the roster spots. We got quarterback, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex, and a super flex, and then a bunch of bench spots. Ali, we probably won't get to fill the entire roster, but we're definitely gonna get there. We'll get our full starting lineups probably locked in, and I imagine maybe 1 or 2 other bench spots. We'll see how we are for time, though. Ali, we're gonna get straight to it. You're first up on the clock. I'm gonna hit start draft, and you'll be on the clock right away. You good to go?
I'm ready, mate. Yeah.
Let's do it. Yes. Here we go. Time has started. Ali, you're on the clock. Talk us through what you're going to do.
Yeah, so being at the 101, naturally, I would probably put this pick on the board. So I'm not going to do that tonight because of the time that we've got, and we're playing against some AI here. But have to go with quarterback, super flex. If I'm going to have to pick at 101, it's going to be the guy that scored the most points last season in terms of the quarterback position. Someone that I feel really good about for the next 5 to 10 years. It's going to be Josh Allen. He's my 101. This is a guy that finished, let's say, the number 1 quarterback last year, quarterback 2 the year before, quarterback 1 and quarterback 1. So we're talking 4 years where he's been a top 2, or 3 out of the 4 years he's been the quarterback 1. That is production that you cannot turn down at the 101. You cannot miss there. Have to go with Josh Allen because of the Russian floor that he brings. He's obviously lost Stephon Diggs. Didn't really affect him at all the second half of last season. He was brilliant. So feel really good about locking him in at my 101. And then I feel like I can relax a little bit and just pick sort of the next best player available when it comes back to me at the 212. So over to you with the 112.
Yeah, so the 112 is really interesting. Obviously, these sort of top elite tier of quarterbacks, they're almost all gone. I don't think they're quite all gone though, Ali. There's a guy here that I think has fallen way too far. So I'm delighted to snap him up at the 112. But you can see here some interesting things that's happened. CD Lamb going in the first round along with Jefferson and Chase, and Amon-Ra St. Brown sneaking up there as well. I'm going to take the last of the truly top tier quarterbacks here, and I know his value has dipped a little bit recently. I'm still going to take Justin Herbert. I don't think he should have fallen quite so far down, so I'm really happy to take Justin Herbert at the 112. That puts me in a bit of a predicament here because I'm torn between a few guys here. I'm torn between a guy like Jordan Love, who I really, really like, and also Anthony Richardson, who I think is great. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take the big, bold move, though, Ali. I'm actually going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. in at the 2-1. I think getting my main quarterback locked up is great. If I can go ahead and also lock in a real bona fide wide receiver 1, because I think what we're going to find is the wide receivers are going to dry up real quick. And there's going to be some quarterbacks that we're happy having in a super flex role and we can take a bit later. But I think the wide receivers, they're going to start flying off the board a lot quicker than perhaps we're comfortable with, especially now that, would you say that you're noticing that this zero RB and fading running back, do you notice that a bit more of a trend lately? Because I certainly am in any startup drafts I'm looking at.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be consensus now. In the last 12 months, it's really fallen heavily towards wide receivers, which, I can't believe we weren't there before. But I do feel like we're heading towards the complete other way, where actually, when you look at the running backs, there's really only a top 6 or 7 running backs that I feel good about in Dynasty, and then the pool dries up completely. So there's question marks about a lot of them. So I just wonder whether in the next, perhaps not this off season, but going forward, NFL teams are really starting to not have that every down running back. They're having running backs by committee, which is, I think, is a smart move in terms of real life NFL. But I just wonder whether they're going to be even more popular than running backs like the Bijan, the Breeses, because they're going to be so rare compared to these wide receivers where you can still get really decent production in the sort of rounds 3, 4, 5 onwards. I just wonder whether it'll turn the other way, but it's certainly at the minute very heavy wide receiver. They're like the currency, they're like gold right now. So they're going for the big bucks. So I cannot blame you for going for an absolute stud here.
Yeah, I love taking Marvin Harrison Jr. Ali, bold take for me, but I think it's going to happen. I think this time next year, Marvin Harrison Jr. you never see fall to the second round. I think he's locked in as a first round startup pick as you're back on the clock. It's a couple of those running backs, including team 2. I mean, going with Jonathan Taylor, very interesting move to say the least, I think, in the second round. Ali, that puts you back on the clock. What are you thinking?
Well, what am I thinking? I can't get this image out of my head that I saw today, which was Joe Burrow's haircut. Did you see Joe Burrow's new hairstyle?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is bold. I think
is.
I have to be all in on Joe Burrow for this next season. But that's going off topic because I cannot draft him because he's been drafted.
He's like Samson, right? The longer his hair grows, the stronger he's going to get.
Exactly. He's going to be incredible. Yeah, absolutely love Joe Burrow for that. But moving on. So strategy and sort of theory behind it's third round reversal here. So I've not got 2 picks to hammer in here. I've only got 1, and then it's another 12 or 11 picks before me. So I have to really think carefully about this because in Superflex, especially in real life drafts, them quarterbacks, them top 12, 15 quarterbacks go really, really early. And then you have the quarterbacks, I'd probably say down to Jared Goff, who doesn't have any more question marks about him now because he's just signed that massive new deal, locked in for at least another 2 to 3 years, which is great. So you have to be a bit careful now because you could easily see if I wasn't to take a quarterback, which I mean, there's 2 players in consideration for me here, and those the top 2 in the ADP. So AJ Brown is someone that I feel like is underrated. I feel like He's still so young. He's an absolute stud. And I just feel like recency bias has sort of taken over, where he really finished the season poorly. And a lot of people are remembering that. The Eagles absolutely crumbled. Just wanted to get that in there for Kev when he listens to this show back. But a lot of people remember that, and they don't remember how good AJ Brown was the first half of the season and for the his whole career. So he's definitely in consideration. But I mean, this guy is someone that I've been buying for the last 2 off seasons in Kyler Murray. So if I can lock in, which I'm going to do here, I'm going to lock in Kyler Murray as my quarterback 2 to pair with Josh Allen. I mean, that for me is a dream scenario, because when Kyler Murray is fit and healthy, he's automatically a top 10 quarterback, and the upside is top 5. He's now got your wide receiver that you just drafted, Marvin Harrison Jr. That would have been a nice stack for you. The ceiling, as I mentioned, if he can stay healthy, is really top 5 for Kyler Murray. I really do still believe that. So to lock him there as my quarterback 2, it's a dream scenario, and then I can really focus on other positions going forward.
You mentioned the word stacking there. So obviously that's a huge thing in best ball and even in like charity tournaments and redraft. How much of an emphasis do you put on stacking in your dynasty startups?
So I'd have to say it's not much. Probably didn't word that well, but it's not something that I actively go out to seek a stack unless it's a primary stack. So it's probably, you won't get it from the draft, but you're looking for the top stacks that are going to be around for a long time. You're looking at the likes of Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase. You're looking at CD Lamb and Dak Prescott is a massive win now stack. Won you the leagues last year. There's question marks about Dak. So that's the risky thing about stacking in Dynasty is situations can change so much. And you look at the quarterbacks nowadays, you go back 5 to 10 years in the NFL, the quarterbacks hardly used to change teams. You now look at the quarterbacks, and if you're not a top
they hardly stay.
Team, they hardly stay. There's a merry-go-round of them sort of bottom 15 quarterbacks. They're just switching teams every other year. So it's not something I actively go out and look for unless it's a premier stack, like one of the top, the top wide receivers stacks with the quarterback. How about yourself, Mags? Because for me, I use it as a tiebreaker. So if I've got a few players in the same tier, it'll be the tiebreaker if I can get that stack. How do you approach it?
Yeah, it took the words right out of me. I was going to say it's more like a tiebreaker thing for me. Yeah, unless like in the unlikely scenario, you can get a Burrow and a Chase or something like that. Not a lot of surefire locked, 1-2s at the minute, which is really, really weird to say. But there just isn't. So that puts me back on the clock. I've got Herbert, I've got Harrison. Next pick, I mean, am I tempted by the new shiny toy and Malik Neighbors? Kinda. But I think you got to go with the ADP here. AJ Brown sitting at the very top. I can get Marvin Harrison Jr. and AJ Brown and Justin Herbert on the same team here. I'm super happy taking AJ with for whatever reason, that dip. I think the Eagles are going to come out guns blazing next year, Ali. And we're all going to regret, fading people like Jalen Hurts, which I've seen faded, and fading people like AJ Brown. I think that's going to be, people are going to be kicking themselves for not taking them.
Oh, 100%. And the fact that you've now taken 2 of the top 6 or 7 wide receivers in my dynasty rankings, and the fact that you have to start 3 wide receivers in this format, which is the format that I prefer to do, that's massive. That's a big advantage over a lot of the field. So you've got the elite quarterback, 2 elite wide receivers. That is such a tasty way to start your drafts, and absolutely love, either direction that you go for. You've got a young team there, but you also win now, which is the correct approach to be. So that puts me back on the clock at the 3-12. So it was a long way back from when I picked Kyler Murray, but
I can tell you who you're not taking. He's sitting right at the top of the ADP there, Ali.
Well, yes. The trouble is, I will not be taking him. Drake London is someone that I think we should talk about, because I think I obviously give him a lot of crap on Twitter, and I think that he is overrated for his value, what people perceive him to be. People have got him ranked top 10 in Dynasty, and I think he's not deserved to be there yet. I think I need to see something from him, because the first 2 years, say what you like about the quarterback play, but he's really not done much whatsoever. He's hardly missed any time, and he's not produced whatsoever.
Ali,
and
he's been historically bad for every quarterback he's played for, and every offensive coordinator he's played for, and every head coach he's played for. He is the worst leading wide receiver that Kirk Cousins, that anybody has had in the history of their playing career and the history of the coaching career of all of the staff. That is what it is. That's how statistically bad it is.
Yeah, 100% agree. You compare him, and people say, all right, Garrett Wilson hasn't done much better in terms of the stats, in terms of the fantasy points. But when you just watch the two, compare Garrett Wilson to Drake London, who came out in the same class, it's night and day in terms of wide receivers. I think Garrett Wilson has the ability to be in that top tier with the likes of Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. He's that good. When I watch Drake London, I don't quite see it. And he was the wide receiver 1 for me coming out in that class. So, I got that wrong, and I've just not quite seen it from him. So a lot of people are putting 2 and 2 together, saying he is going to put it together this year and he's going to finish in the top 10. But I would say I would bet against that and just say he's probably not going to make that. He's been a wide receiver 3, both years. So, so interestingly enough, you picked AJ Brown as your wide receiver 2. I'm going to go for my next highest wide receiver. We talk about 3 wide receivers that you have to start here. The hotness is wide receivers. So I'm going to pick Devonta Smith as my wide receiver 1. Nice. He'll be the highest ranked wide receiver on my board. And then it's a difficult one here, because this is right where the running back well really dries up. So there's someone there, Devon, get the tables, Achane, is someone that is spicy, someone that I really do like to own in Dynasty, because I can only see 2 outcomes coming for Devon Achane. He's either going to absolutely smash again. He was something like 6-7 yards a carry last season, which was it was
insane,
phenomenal, record breaking. But then obviously he couldn't sustain it. He's either going to flame out and he won't be able to take, and he won't carry on at that efficiency, or he's just going to absolutely smash and just be a top 3, top 4 Dynasty running back. So it's a really tight one between him, Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is someone that is ready to take the next step as well.
Mm-hmm.
Last year was a bit of a disappointment. I thought he was really going to step it up, but I feel like this year he could do it. And then the next one would probably be Michael Pittman Jr., who I'm probably higher than consensus. I think he was fantastic with Gardner Minshew last season.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Anthony Richardson this year, which I was really impressed with the 3 or 4 games that we saw him. His passing accuracy was one thing that I had questioned, but we really saw him be accurate and look at, a natural NFL thrower last year. So it's between those guys. I'm actually because I think the running back well is really going to dry up, and I've got 23, 24 picks before my next pick. I'm going to go for get the tables.
Love Achane, of course, there with Bubba Raheem Mostert, and of course Jalen Spike Wright Dudley as well. At any stage, because I'm just seeing people like a Dak Prescott go off the board. So the way I play sometimes, even if I've got Allen and Murray, I'm looking there and thinking, right, if I take Dak Prescott here, I can probably go out and, all things being well, I could trade Dak Prescott for a Devonta Smith plus, probably. It is riskier, but it is something that I try and do sometimes, even if I don't necessarily need that position. Is that something you find yourself doing? Obviously not in the mock, because you can't trade with anybody, but is that something you find yourself doing more often?
Yeah, 100%. I just think in the real time drafts against real people, especially if you've got money on the line, them quarterbacks are absolutely golden in terms of super flex, because they're always getting injured. People that, contenders are going to... Dak Prescott is someone that I'm actively trying to trade for on a contender, because there's a little bit of risk there, but the payoff is massive, because him and CeeDee Lamb just he was just absolutely bombing the balls over to him all day long. Defenders couldn't do anything about it. They've not done anything different in this offseason to say that won't happen again. So, yeah, it would have been someone like Dak Prescott. I think just because of the mock draft, where the quarterbacks aren't quite valued as high, So I think in this instance, I'm able to get a quarterback 3 a little bit later on. So like a Jared Goff, JJ McCarthy, even a Cousins, Baker Mayfield, or Will Levis, someone like that. I could probably get as my quarterback 3. So yeah, definitely would be Dak in consideration. If I went quarterback, and I had 3 top 15 quarterbacks, yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now I'm back on the clock here. I'm definitely going to take my Superflex quarterback here. I think I've got Jared Goff here as a super safe guy. I don't think I need to overcomplicate this too much. I think just take Jared Goff, lock that quarterback position up, and be happy with it. So I'm really pleased to take Goff, and then I'm back on the clock again. And this is kind of where I'm like, okay, do I take the plunge? Do I think my team with Goff and Herbert and Harrison and AJ Brown is good enough to start contending right away? I think probably. So this is maybe when you start to think about getting some of these running backs on board as well. If I'm more building for the future, I'm thinking I'm going to leave running back, but I am pretty happy with how my team's looking. So I would be tempted, but the only issue is you're dead right. These running backs dry up so quickly. The guys at the top, Kenneth Walker is there, who, yeah, not bad, right? Not bad at all. Josh Jacobs, who might be about to have a down year, just have a funny feeling about that. Then you got guys like James Cook and Isaiah Pacheco, DeAndre Swift. Jonathan Brooks is actually very intriguing there. A guy that could end up finishing ahead of all of those guys. So, man, I find it sometimes real tricky to pull the trigger on these running backs. So you either see him just because I'm like, I just want to get more receivers all the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly why I went for A-Chain, because he's the bottom one of my second tier. So I've got Bijan and Breece Hall, my top tier. My second tier ends at Devon A-Chain. So, if I was to miss out on him, I'd probably fade the position altogether and try and sort of hammer rounds, maybe 7, 8, 9, 10. Just try and hit on a couple of running backs that will give me sort of RB2 production. So yeah, you're right. This is the tier that, well, we're getting to the dead zone already, aren't we? Where it's just not great.
So quick. You know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm going to go and take, even though it's not tight end premium, Ali, I'm going to go take a guy that I think could be a difference maker. I do see the guy. You see his jersey in the background. I see Travis Kelce there, but I think that's a trap. I think good old Travis. He did decide a new extension, but yeah, I seen the decline last year in Travis Kelce watching the Chiefs every week. He's less targeted. He's less used. He's just.
I heard it here first.
It's not that he's falling off a cliff per se. It's that I think the Chiefs are using him less to save him. The Chiefs are a team that are kind of like, we're going to make the playoffs. We need to save Travis for the playoffs. That's what happened last year. We've seen Travis Kelce explode in the playoffs for the NFL. Unfortunately for us, though, Ali, that doesn't mean a damn thing for our fantasy teams. So I think that's a slight trap. I'm going to take Brock Bowers here. I think he could come in and be a difference maker for my team right away. And now I don't have to worry about tight end at all. I've got Bowers in. I'll take another guy way at the end as my backup with someone with a decent bit of upside. I'm pretty happy taking Bowers there. Even though I do see some of those running backs coming off the board, I've got a huge tier of running backs. So I think there might still be one left for me when it comes back around to me, hopefully.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you're certainly building a superstar young roster there. You've got the old man Goff, but I mean, just some young studs on that team. And question for you, Mags, what point do you now look at your players that you've picked? So would it be round 5? Would it be earlier? Would it be slightly later when you look to see what sort of direction your team is heading in? Are you always trying to contend year one? Is there any times where you'll sort of play off year one and sort of go for year 2? Or would you now, if you say you drafted a few, because you've got a young sort of roster there, but if you went for a few older guys, would you just keep going and try and push year one to go all in and win year one? At what point do you start looking at that? It's less to do with rounds for me, and it's more to do with certain players in particular. So if we look at some of these teams here, if we look at team 2, the second I take Jonathan Taylor, I'm in a win now mode. If we look at team 4, Tyreek Hill's the
big one, right? If you're drafting Tyreek Hill, you have to go all in to win now. Otherwise, you're just wasting that Tyreek Hill pick because he's not going to be here in a couple of years. So Jonathan Taylor, Tyreek Hill, I might say Christian McCaffrey, another huge one, a guy that's probably not going to be here in 3 years' time. As soon as you draft a player like that, then you have to really jump in. And as soon as you start spending high draft capital on an older player that's only got a limited time left, then that for me is whenever I switch completely into a win now mode rather than waiting to a particular round, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I completely understand. You completely understand all that. It's similar situation to me, really. You have to. Every board is different, so I think you can go in with a plan, but it never ever comes out.
No.
You plan exactly because you can know people in your league, the sort of players that they like, but you can also, when you're playing with strangers, you have no idea what they're thinking and whether they're going win now, punt year one, who knows? But it's really interesting looking through the rosters to see, who looks like they can contend already. Just 5 picks in, so so we'll move on to my pick, and I'm trying to stall actually because I'm in two minds whether what to do with these two, because I've only got, the thing that worries me is I've only got one wide receiver. This is start 3 wide receivers. The first pick I think is going to be fairly automatic, because I think the guy sitting at the top of the ADP is someone that I mentioned, previously as I left, made my pick, is someone that I want to target for my quarterback 3 spot, is someone that's going to have arguably the best wide receiver to throw to in Justin Jefferson. JJ McCarthy, I think if he shows anything in year 1, is going to be, ranked as I think as a top 10 dynasty quarterback, in 12 months' time, this time next off season. I think if he shows anything, so I think I'm going to lock him in as my quarterback 3. I've got, they picked him nice and early. He's going to have that insulated value for at least a couple of years unless he's absolutely terrible. I can't see that being the case because all he's done is shown in college that he's a winner. I think he's capable of, having some rushing work. He just wasn't asked to do that much whatsoever at Michigan. So I think the upside is there. It's just untapped. So now I got my 3 quarterbacks, which is typically what I like to try and do in the top 5 or 6 picks, because otherwise, if you're chasing that second quarterback, it gets really rough because you often see a quarterback run and you just miss it and you end up scratching your head and wondering what you can do, because you can't compete. And if you've got 2 really good quarterbacks, you can't compete in Superflex. So the next one is a really, really tough pick. So there is a running back, and it's the guy that you mentioned in Jonathan Brooks. I think to have him as a running back 2 is really, really interesting because I think talent-wise, I think he was a round 1 pick in the NFL draft. Just the fact that he was injured. We've only really seen the 1 year of production, but it was a fantastic year. And he's really got, he might be a top 10 dynasty running back right now. So he's intriguing. And then the question is, do I punt the wide receiver position, knowing that I have to start 3 wide receivers and just hope 2 decent starting wide receivers come back to me? Looking at your roster, you've got 2 monsters already. So it's between Jonathan Brooks. Looking at the tier of wide receiver, the top of the ADP is Tank Dell. I like Tank Dell. Obviously, with Stephon Diggs going there to Houston, it sort of muddies the water for this year. I think there's plenty of volume to go around, but there's not enough to support all 3 of those as top 20 wide receivers. So who's going to miss out? Tank Dell coming off the injury. Possibly it could be him. You've then got Jordan Anderson. That's a little stack with JJ McCarthy, but it's not the premier stack. So again, there's a lot of mouths to feed from a rookie quarterback. TJ Hawkinson is there as well. Aaron Jones is there. So it's not straightforward. Then you got
it's JJ throwing to JJ and TJ and JA and AJ. So it's fantastic.
It is brilliant. They love the J's over there. And I mean, they're all pretty much studs. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be difficult for all of them to have production year one. So then you've got the likes of Xavier Worthy, George Pickens, Deebo Samuel. I mean, that's pretty tempting, but he's probably in the back end of his career.
He would be an example of what I was speaking about earlier. If you took Deebo, then I think I would then pivot to be like, right, okay, let's go. Let's take these older guys and let's go for it.
Yeah, 100%. But the thing is, I have to look at who I've got, and I've got Josh Allen, Kyler Murray. I'm automatically win now because if they're healthy for this season, I've got 2 top 10, potentially top 7 quarterbacks. You know, I have to go for it. So the other one is Mark Andrews is still on the board, and that's still some people's tight end one. I mean, we're talking about we've had 5.
Shout out, Matt, FF Dynasty.
What a stud that guy is. But we've had 6 tight ends go off the board, and Mark Andrews is still sitting there, which is unbelievable. So going to have to make the pick here. It's between probably Deebo. No, I'm going to go for that guy, Mark Andrews, as my tight end one. Yep. I think, you know, I'm looking at win now. I've locked in an elite tight end. If he can stay healthy, he could easily recapture that tight end one position. So, this is not falling very well for me because I mentioned I've punted wide receiver now, and there's
look at that
massive wide receiver run.
Whoa, yeah.
Do you just want to talk us through that wide receiver run, Mags?
Yeah, so we had a couple of guys you mentioned, Jordan Addison and Tank Dell, both like number 2 options. Xavier Worthy was a guy who, if he came back to me, I was going to take Xavier Worthy actually because I seen him there. Deebo then went off the board. Brian Thomas Jr. going, for my money, a little bit too high off the board. Then we got Stephon Diggs, Devontae Adams. Again, 2 guys that I'm thinking if I'm taking them, I'm going for it a little bit here. Rashee Rice, his ADP hasn't really been affected too much by all of the nonsense, it seems. He's still going around 6. And George Pickens, a guy that is flying up everybody's board lately, what I've been noticing with George Pickens. I mean, George Pickens is fool's gold if I ever seen it, to be honest. But we'll see how it goes with Pickens. He does have that. I keep talking about George Pickens having that magic dust, that spark, that X factor, but we'll see if he can do it consistently with Russell Wilson or Justin Fields as his quarterback. I don't know, Ali. It doesn't spark me with a huge amount of confidence. Now, I've sort of got not a dilemma here. It's a nice problem to have. I'm staring TJ Hawkinson in the face, and I'm thinking I could play TJ Hawkinson in my flex spot, even in a non-tight end premium spot. That's a really nice player to slot in, but I just can't say no to this 1-2 punch of picks here, Ali, because I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get my first running back locked in with Jonathan Brooks, who I'm very happy fell to me. So I think Brooks is ready to go. The second one, I'm going to take a player I still really, really believe in, and I think might be due for a big year. And if he is, I've got an absolutely frightening wide receiver core. I'm taking Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ali. And if he hits, I'm having Marvin Harrison, AJ Brown, and Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I am delighted about. It is a bit risky, though, because he was like wide receiver 40 last year, right?
He was, but I mean, talent-wise, he's up there, top 15, top 20 wide receiver in the NFL from just an amazing program. I mean, look at the young studs that you've got on your team. You've just drafted.
Yes.
You've got Marvin Harrison Jr. You've got Brock Bowers, both touted as generational prospects. Jonathan Brooks, the running back 1 from this class. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the wide receiver 1 from last class. The 2023 class.
Yeah.
So,
Old man Goff.
And then old man Goff. Yeah, love it. But again, this is the risk that you take in 3 wide receivers. You have to start 3 wide receivers. There's been another run on wide receivers, so
including McConkey. You must have wanted Ladd McConkey to come back to you.
I mean, I can't believe the luck that Jonathan Brooks fell to you, but then Ladd McConkey couldn't fall to me. But Ladd McConkey's gone. Jaden Reed has gone. Someone that would have definitely been in consideration for my pick. Keon Coleman, that's an interesting one. I mean, that would have been a stack for me with Josh Allen. Cooper Kupp, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Cooper Kupp going forward. And Mike Evans, again, that would have been someone that would have been so good to lock in as, wide receiver 2. Just been given another contract. He's there for another couple of years. And then George Kittle to round off.
Keon Coleman, Ali, right? Obviously on this show, whenever we were looking at these rookies before they were drafted, I kind of come out and sort of poo-pooed Keon Coleman. But that's what he was going way up in the first round of rookie mocks. Now that he's fallen sort of mid-second round, I'm on board with the Keon Coleman train. Do you know what helps? And I don't know, this isn't really draft strategy, but how much of it comes into you? Like, I'm happy to take Keon Coleman over other guys because I've seen the interviews with Keon Coleman. I've seen what he's all about. I think the guy's great. And sometimes that'll be a tiebreaker for me. It's like, I just like this person more. I'll take him because I want them to succeed more.
Oh, 100%. Something that I've installed into my philosophy in Dynasty is likability factor. And I just think this is the reason why I've taken so many shares of Xavier Worthy at the 110, 111. He's an automatic pick because, I might not like him, but everybody loves him. If second Rashee Rice gets his suspension, whether it be 6 games, 8 games, who knows what's going to happen there. I mean, Worthy's price again is going to, be on the increase. If he then starts the season on fire with Mahomes, I mean, God Lord, what will happen to his dynasty value then? So, I might not even have to start him. I can just flip him for probably more than what I paid a late first round pick for him. So that's definitely something that goes into consideration is to pick guys. It's good to pick your own guys, but if you're the only one in the league that likes him, you'll never ever be able to trade that guy away. Whereas if you pick a guy that consensus 75% of the league absolutely love him, you're going to find so many buyers for that pick. If perhaps you don't want him or you want to use him to go get another pick that you have higher on your board. So definitely a good strategy for to use going forward. But
and you've got the opposite as well, right? You got your players like Daniel Jones, who no matter how well they do, people are still just going to hate the guy.
Exactly. There's plenty of players like that. And I mean, the guy that I'm going to talk about now in Christian Kirk, I mean, this is how low the wide receivers are getting right now. This is a guy that I absolutely love in Dynasty as, ideally a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, but this is a guy that just keeps producing. He's in a situation again where Calvin Ridley has just been traded away, or he's left to go to Tennessee. They've got Brian Thomas Jr. in, which I really like him. He's gone in the last round. Yeah. But there's a lot of risk involved with Brian Thomas Jr. Christian Kirk is just going to have an absolute ton of targets again this year. He's sneakily going to be sort of a mid wide receiver 2. And, people that have him as their wide receiver 4 on their team are just going to be absolutely laughing. So, he can do, people still are underrating him. Another one is Amari Cooper that's on the board that, these are the guys that I'm unfortunately going to have to fill my roster with and just hope to keep getting production from them. But, luckily enough with Amari Cooper, he's someone, again, that always finishes as a top, wide receiver 2 every single year. That is sneaky, that helps you win championships, but they're just unfashionable. But, these are the guys that are going to be difficult to trade away if they don't hit. This is not a nice situation. My arse is a little bit hot right now. This is somewhere where, I've taken my tight end 1. If this was tight end premium, you've got 2 people at the top that I really like, David Njoku, Jake Ferguson. They're 2 tight ends that I really like going forward into 2024. If it was tight end premium, I'd probably pick one of those guys going forward just because of that premium. And I think they're both in positions to smash. Looking at running backs, you've got Joe Mixon at the top. Sneakily really like Joe Mixon for this year, I think, on the Houston Texans. You've then got Javonte Williams. You've got an aging Alvin Kamara. And then the likes of Trey Benson, David Montgomery. It gets really tough at running back. So I think I have to focus on wide receivers just because, I've only got the 1 wide receiver. You have to start 3. Ideally, you need 6 good wide receivers to start, for injuries and bye weeks. So first one I'm going to go with, unfortunately, it's not someone that I massively like, but I think is in a decent position in Terry McLaurin.
Okay. Okay.
Sneakily getting up there in age, but
Yeah.
again, this
29,
is
he? 28, 29?
Yeah, I think he's 28. Yeah, he's 28. I think he's the clear wide receiver one, Washington for Jaden Daniels. I really like Jaden Daniels. I think he's not just a rusher. He's a good passer as well. And when he passes deep, he was like the most accurate quarterback in college. So it's hopefully matches up nicely with Terry McLaurin. Damn, this is this is looking pretty tough because I can either go for a running back 2, which is going to be from this list, unless I go for Trey Benson, it's going to be an older running back that's probably going to give me decent production for this year. You look at the likes of Joe Mixon, was the running back 6 last year. I think he's got the ability to match that. This year's probably his ceiling. Or do I go for Christian Kirk to fill up my wide receiver room? I am going to go for, because I'm not going to go tight end or quarterback. Got that locked up for now. I'm going to go for... I'm going to go Christian Kirk as my wide receiver 3. It doesn't feel great for those two wide receivers, but I know they're going to produce like wide receiver 2, production. And it's going to be sneaky good for me. And I just got to hope that Devonta Smith, takes off and could be that really good stud wide receiver 1 for me. Because looking at it now, I'm going to need him to be.
And how much of that factored into, it is start 3 wide receivers, Holly. And let's say you didn't have any running backs and you had like 2 receivers locked up there. Let's switch to back. Would you then be going, right, actually, I need to sort of go and get myself a running back right now just to make sure that I'm not missing out completely? Or how much of that factored in was just the team you drafted already and the positional need that you had?
Yes, I mean, it's never a nice position to be in where you feel like you have to, you're sort of pressured to go for positional need. I sort of push the strategy out a little bit because I usually try and hammer, elite wide receivers, where it's probably where I went for Kyler Murray as my quarterback 2. The chance was too good to pass up. I could have easily gone for stud wide receiver there, which is what you done, and then hope that my sort of quarterback 2 would have been at a fairly decent level. But that's the risk that you take when you go for quarterback. You're then punting either running back or wide receiver in terms of elite production anyway. So, sort of, if I didn't have any running backs, I would maybe have felt pressured to take one. Like I know, say Joe Mixon, he's not got much dynasty value, but he's going to give me at least 1 year of elite production, which will be this year. So that's all you can ask for in terms of you starting running back. So, it's not nice to be in that position. You're sort of in a much better position where you can almost take best player available here. So is that the strategy that you're now looking at? Because you've got 2 quarterbacks, you've got Jonathan Brooks, who obviously hopefully will be there for the start of the season, but might not be there. So are you obviously you shouldn't really be thinking about your starting lineup right now, but you've locked up wide receiver. So what sort of position are you looking at? Any sort of certain position here, or are you basically just looking for best player available and keep hammering that?
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking, we know that there is, like, full disclosure, there's a weird sort of sleeper glitch, right? So guys like Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield probably maybe wouldn't be here. So I'm trying to be like as honest as possible. What I think I'm going to do is I'm going to shore up 2 things because I'm back to back here, which actually really I'm quite liking about picking at the 12 position. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to shore up my running back position because I definitely need that. I'm going to really hit running back hard after. And then we still have that question mark, Ali, about Jackson Smith and Jigba. So I'm going to go ahead and take a more reliable guy at wide receiver as well. One that you're really going to like. Spoiler alert, Ali. But we'll first of all get into the running back. I'm sort of torn between 2 guys here. It is a guy like Najee Harris, who we know is going to get a huge workload probably with Arthur Smith there. If he's going to do one thing, it's going to be run the ball. He's not going to trust Russell Wilson to throw it if he's got any sense. So I think he's going to give Najee Harris a ton of work. Then Zamir White's a complete sort of, pardon the pun for the name of the show, but he's the complete wild card, Ali, right? It's really, like, ironically enough, his new teammate, Alexander Madison, he's one of the reasons why Samir White scares me so much. Because is it just
spot on
Alexander Madison all over again? Where we're like, when Samir White's the guy, you'll see. And then he becomes the guy, and it's like, wah, wah, right? It's just like, damn, that wasn't great. That's why I think, even though I don't like it, because I don't love the player, I'm going to take Najee Harris. I think I need more of a sure thing in as my second running back. And then my wide receiver, just in case JSN doesn't hit right away, I'm going to take your guy returning to the slot for this year, Ali. I'm taking Chris Godwin. Massive year incoming for Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I mean, I could talk about Chris Godwin all day long, but I'm not going to bore anybody. I do feel like he was talking today to the media, just saying how excited that he was to get back to be that big slot. It feels like his game, he has more of an advantage where he can, play from the slot, go either way, feature a little bit outside as well. But this is where he finishes the overall wide receiver 2 in 2019 playing from the slot in this sort of system. So it really does excite me for Godwin. And I think he's someone that, you're picking up in the 9th round here, and someone people are just forgetting about. So I think you've got a great value there, Mags.
He's not exactly like old either, right? He's not like Mike Evans, where it's like an older vet. Like Godwin's like, it's Terry McLaurin ages, right? So he's
I think he's
Hill or anything.
He's 28. The difficulty comes, I think, because his contract is up the end of this year. They've pushed money into 2025, but his official contract is up this year. So there is a question mark because I don't think they want to pay Mike Evans and Chris Godwin upwards of 25 million a season. So they could go in a different direction, but I just think for this year he's going to absolutely smash. So
I
think you've smashed it out of the park. So this is actually fallen kindly to me for a change, which is nice because there's a few people at the top that I really do like. So it's actually a tough decision, but for more right reasons here. So running back wise, the guy at the top of the ADP, Jaylen Warren, is someone that I'm really becoming high on. So I've ranked him in my top 24 running backs, which some people, didn't like. But I just think from what he showed last year, I think he showed he's got more juice than Najee Harris. They didn't pick up Najee Harris as 5th-year option.
No.
I think Jaylen Warren in the Arthur Smith offense has the ability. I'd say it's a 50-50 between Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. But if you get almost a 2-round discount on Jaylen Warren, then that's someone that I really do like.
Yeah.
And then the likes of James Conner, I think he's in a good position again to have a very good, 1 year. He's someone that always produces this, but done remarkably well to stay healthy the last couple of years in Arizona, and all he's done is produce. So the pick would be to shore up the running back room, and I'll pick one of those two guys. And then wide receiver wise, there's some guys that I really do like here. So Keenan Allen, someone that has now gone to Caleb Williams. I think there's obviously a crowded wide receiver room there with Rome Odunze, DJ Moore. And then the next guy, Hollywood Brown, is someone that is definitely intriguing because he's only signed a 1-year deal in Kansas City. I think he's going to be someone that Pat Mahomes leans on early on if Rashee Rice is to get that suspension because, Xavier Worthy's, he's incredibly impressive. I think he'll have a good career there. But, from a rookie, can you really, bank on production from straight away? I don't think that always works, especially in a Kansas City offense that's so complex. Rookie wide receivers, they don't hit very early on. So I think Hollywood Brown is an interesting one. Someone that, if he does hit early on, I think is someone that I can probably flip for another wide receiver perhaps I like, or, a rookie pick going forward. And then the other guy on the list, Deontay Johnson, is someone that I think linking up with Bryce Young, I think he'll be his number 1 target. So that's really intriguing as someone that as my wide receiver 4, I think I'm pretty happy with that. So I think between the running backs, I'm going to pick Jaylen Warren just because I think he's got a bit more juice left in the tank than James Conner. I think perhaps towards the end of this season, when maybe Trey Benson is introduced a bit more, I think James Conner's value is just going to fall off a cliff. And then wide receiver wise, it's probably a toss up between Keenan Allen's 32 years old. It's a difficult one, especially moving to a new team. It's a rookie quarterback. Yes, it's Caleb Williams, but if it doesn't hit right away, he's not going to have any value left. So it's between.
That's why I sort of avoided Keenan Allen as well. Even earlier when DJ Moore was looking at me in the face, picking the right person in that offense is going to be so hard.
Yeah, I completely agree. So I think for this instance, it's a toss-up between Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown is only 26 years old. Feels like he's been in the league about 10 years.
Yeah.
It's between him and Deontay Johnson. And I just think for upside, let's go Hollywood Brown for upside.
Nice.
If he hits it off early with Pat Mahomes, I think I can either just be happy that we're seeing this wide receiver one production while Rashee Rice is potentially not there, or I can flip him for a profit. So, Mags, you're back on the clock, and this is
getting ugly, Ali. This is the turning point, because I'm not happy taking any of these guys, really. There's a lot of sort of upside people. There's a lot of guys that you're like, okay, if I squint, I can see it. So whenever we get to that kind of stage, Ali, you know what I like to do? I just take a goddamn running back. If I'm not sure, I just take running backs, because they're easier to predict, I think, than wide receivers. So I'm just going to start hammering running back from now, I think, Ali, now. So
would you be thinking, obviously you've not got your quarterback 3 yet in the super flex, is there anyone there that interests you, or is it the fact that the level is, is just not there, where you're just now going to perhaps punt it for another couple of rounds, just pick someone up late?
I think I'll probably, at this stage, when I have Herbert and Goff, they're going to start pretty much every week.
Yeah,
I'll just take a guy like Aaron Rodgers much later on, just a veteran that's going to come in for a few years, and then hopefully address that issue in a draft, or just keep continually cycling through these older veterans that are always available. So I'll happily take an Aaron Rodgers in a few rounds to address that. Running back wise, it's still not that pretty. Devin Singletary's got a clear path. He's fairly unopposed at New York. So even though, again, I don't love the player.
That was going to be my question to you, is because there's a few players here that seem really interesting in. There's a lot of older guys on this list now in terms of the running backs. You've got the likes of Austin Eckler, Devin Singletary, you just mentioned there. Raheem Mostert, again, signed another 1-year deal. Gus Edwards, I mean, he could be the lead back for Justin Herbert. So, but you've also got some interesting younger players like the Kendre Miller that people seem to like. You've got Jalen Wright, Marshawn Lloyd come on. So, at what point are you more tempted to go for, production that is going to be there, perhaps from the Gus Edwards, or do you lean upside now in someone that like a Lloyd or a Wright that can really sort of, if they get given the chance, can really increase their value?
And this is the beauty of picking at 12, Ali, because I'm going to do both.
Right.
Because I'm going to take Devin Singletary and I'm going to take Jalen Wright. So I've got that starter right now in Singletary. Then next year, with the loaded class at running back coming in, where New York will probably address that issue, we'll see Jalen Wright be ready to come into a lineup whenever they have the 1-2 punch of Echan and Wright. So I'm happy locking in Singletary as a shorter term for this year, and then grabbing a guy like Jalen Wright, who, by the way, Ali, I'm just going to say it, this is criminal right here that Raheem Mostert is being drafted ahead of Jalen Wright. I just cannot fathom a world where you would take Raheem Mostert over his obvious replacement, who's going to come into the exact same scheme, who's just as fast and be there for longer. Like, that's crazy to me, right? Do you see any side of taking Mostert over Wright?
No, I really don't. I was listening to a popular podcast this week that was saying Raheem Mostert is a buy in Dynasty right now for a contender, which yeah, you may be getting him really cheap, but I mean, he was a top 5 running back last year. So but if you're talking straight up, there's no way. Jalen Wright is a really young running back. He was, my running back 3 coming into the pre-draft process. He's my running back 4 now. So really like him. There's absolutely no way, that I'd be taking him above most ahead of, his replacement, as you just mentioned. So
yeah. All right.
Perhaps
Ali, will we speed through? If you want to put your next 2 picks in, I'll put my next 2 in, and then you can finish us off in round 13, and that won't be unlucky for us. We'll end on round 13.
Yeah, I'll quickly speed through. So Kendre Miller is someone, again, I've talked about the likability factor. I think there is a possibility for him to get more meaningful snaps this year. I think Alvin Kamara is still clearly in a position where he's going to catch a ton of passes. He's going to be really good this year for fantasy. But Kendre Miller is still a really young running back, showed some flashes. So again, he's someone that a lot of people are trying to go for. So again, I don't even have to start him. I could flip him. So Kendre Miller is the first pick. And then second pick, I'm really going to have to... No tight ends that I like. The wide receivers, I'm still lacking sort of... Because I've not got any elite wide receivers, apart from Devonta Smith, perhaps, I'm having to make up for it in wide receiver depth. So the people at the top of the list, when you've got the likes of Quentin Johnson, who's like sixth price on the list, it is not great. So looking at the wide receivers, no, in fact, there's not even a wide receiver that I can vouch for.
This is kind of what I mentioned at the start of the show, is these wide receivers seem to dry up so much quicker than the running backs and even the quarter. For whatever reason, wide receiver, even though there is, huge depth at wide receiver, and it seems like every wide receiver class has got that huge amount of depth. For whatever reason, that doesn't seem to translate. I wonder if it's because teams just draft so many wide receivers that it's the depth, you don't really see it.
Yeah. There's guys there that can be the number 1 on their team, you've got, but then you just can't bank on it. There are either so many question marks, the age is not there, like a Tyler Lockett, DeAndre Hopkins, that there's too many question marks. So Marshawn Lloyd is my guy, so I'm going to stick by him and see his dynasty value rise.
Love it. All right, I've got 2 more picks then. So I'll go ahead and I'll lock up my QB3 here. I spoke about Aaron Rodgers being the guy. I actually think Matthew Stafford might have a few more years in him and could potentially finish as a higher quarterback finish. So I'm delighted to lock up a guy like Matthew Stafford here in the 12th round as my 3rd quarterback. And then my final pick of the draft, Ali, kind of torn a little bit here, but we mentioned him earlier, a guy that's going to come in and probably be the running back 1 here. I'm going to just go ahead and take Gus Edwards and lock him in for my team. And then I'm super pleased with the depth that I've got at running back there because, you're right. Wide receivers, could I put Hopkins in? Yes, but how much faith am I going to put into a 31-year-old wide receiver? Probably not a lot. The rest of these guys, I feel like your Jacoby Myerses, you could scroll all the way down here and you can get people that will give you similar kind of production or take an upside shot at Javon Baker a little bit later. So I'll go ahead and take the last kind of remaining running back here. That's going to be the running back 1 that isn't called Ezekiel Elliott. So let's get Gus Edwards locked in as my final pick at 13-1. And Ali, we're swinging back around to you. You've got 1 more pick at the back end of the 13th round. Who's going to round off the draft for you?
Yeah, so this is... I'm not going to take this guy, but I want to mention him quickly. Michael Penix at the top of the ADP in terms of, I think you're almost looking at him as a 26th first round pick, just because I think that's the year he's possibly going to come in. I don't see him starting this year. 2025, if Atlanta make the playoffs, they're going to keep Kirk Cousins for another year with that big contract. So he's someone that I would smash right now, just because it's a really safe asset to pick. That's going to be worth.
I want to be honest. More. Didn't see Penix there. Would have taken him. Didn't see him. My bad.
Yeah. But again, this is going to be a fairly easy pick. I think someone that we've talked about his quarterback with the luscious locks we've seen today. Jermaine Burns is going to be the pick to round off my draft. Again, we're shooting for upside here. Someone that I think we'll see flashes of in 2024. But if T. Higgins, if this is his final year and Burton makes that step up to the wide receiver 2 spot, I mean, the sky's the limit really for Burton, putting the talent with the situation. So love that.
Love it. And that brings us to the end of the draft. Ali, while we're still on you, do you want to read us out your final team from the 13 rounds that we've done so far?
Yeah, so quarterbacks, I've got Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, JJ McCarthy, so happy with that. Running backs, Devon Achane, Jalen Warren, I've got Kendre Miller, Marshawn Lloyd as the 4 first running backs I've picked. Wide receiver wise, not great, but here we are. Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, Christian Kirk, Hollywood Brown, and Jermaine Burton. So I'm sort of going for depth there and hope that I can get through, winning with sort of wide receiver 2 guys. And then tight end, Mark Andrews, happy to get us the 6th tight end off the board.
Yeah, love it. And then on my side of the ball, we got Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, and Matthew Stafford as the 3 quarterbacks rotating in and out. Running back, we got the 2 starters of Jonathan Brooks and Najee Harris, but we could rotate in Devin Singletary, Jalen Wright, or Gus Edwards as well. Then love the wide receivers I've managed to get here. Ali Marvin Harrison Jr., AJ Brown, Jackson Smith and Jigba, alongside Chris Godwin as well at wide receiver. And then at tight end, Brock Bowers. Really pleased with that, actually. Love the wide receiver core in particular there.
You've absolutely smashed it. I think, in this format, you need to have really good wide receivers. They're the top currency at the minute. So your roster's definitely looking more tastier than mine with the young studs. But it'd be fairly close because I've got more proven commodities and you've got the up and coming sort of higher ranked dynasty sort of assets there. So 2 really interesting drafts from completely different slots in your startup positions.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you everybody for listening along. If you have enjoyed it, make sure that you leave a little 5-star review over on iTunes, wherever you're listening. Right? We never really asked for that, Ali, but it might be quite nice if you're listening along. Why not? Thank you so much for tuning in. Ali, any final thoughts before we close out the show?
No, I think it was a really interesting exercise, especially when you're on the clock. You've not got too much time to think about it. Strategies can go out the window, but you have to. Perhaps what I didn't quite do tonight is look at the format as much, and just you have to play to the strengths of the format and sort of nail. When you've got 3 wide receivers, start 3 wide receivers, you need to nail them positions and have 3, elite players in there if you can to gain an advantage over your opponent. So. Yeah, really interesting. It's every single slot pick in the startup drafts is just completely different. And you just have to try and read your teammates and just take a step back sometimes, maybe for after 3 picks, after 4 picks, 5 picks, just to see what sort of direction your dynasty team is looking like and sort of follow that trend. So really enjoyed it, Mags. Perhaps we should tweet out these teams and just see who the public like more. I have a feeling it could be yours, but maybe I've got some burner accounts that I could get my votes up.
Yes, the Dynasty drill is about to absolutely hit that smash on that like for your team. But absolutely love it, Ali. Thank you once again, mate, and thank you everybody for listening. If you're not already, make sure that you're checking out at Fantasy Wildcard over on X, and of course the channel for this at Wildcard Rewind, and of course our friends over at Wildcard Dynasty, for us, and our friends at Wildcard Rewind and Wildcard Devi as well. Almost said Wildcard DFS. That's a whole other thing, Ali. We'll maybe get to that later on. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you very soon. Bye.
When you have the wild card, you have the power to change the game.